Sadly, the length of the sermon is inversely related to the length of the scripture reading, so I guess get comfortable. A chicken and a pig were walking down the road. And they talk. Might as well, right? If they're going to walk down the road together, they talk. So, as they're walking down the road, the chicken says to the pig, "Look at that church sign. Church breakfast, ham and eggs. Even we can contribute to the needs of the church." I haven't got there yet. And the pig says, "It may be a contribution for you, but it's a sacrifice for me." Now, not the funniest of jokes, but it goes so well with the end of a stewardship campaign and with the scripture text. This scripture text is short but fascinating. I always think about Jesus sitting with the disciples in church, doing what we often do: put your arm around somebody and slide in close and whisper about somebody else in the room. Right? So Jesus is whispering to the disciples, "Hey, look at this." The first thing I notice is that apparently Jesus cares about money. He cares about our money. In part because we care about our money. It's a big deal for us. How many sleepless nights have we had that are caused by our children, our loved ones, and then by our money? I mean, it's part of life. And so God cares. God does not ignore that part of who we are. More than that, or as much as that, Jesus is trying to give the disciples a different ethic of how money works. So much of our day in and day out world, money is just a straight equation, right? If you want this, it costs that. If you're going to have this, you're going to pay that. Sometimes we get fancy and throw out interest and complicate money and make it even more interesting. But Jesus is trying to take all those equations and set them aside to say, really, money has a different kind of power for you. And he says that by pointing out what the widow is giving. She's giving out of her relationship. Really. Now there's also, she's giving sacrificially, but you don't give sacrificially unless you're giving out of a relationship. So her giving is more motivated by her relationship to God and to God's people than it is to some equation of tithing or some other formula. I was talking to a pastor friend of mine this week. We were talking about this text and about stewardship in general. And he just said what we all think. When he started to pay more attention to his giving, he had less problems with his money. And he said, the reason I talked about it, we're not prosperity preachers that preach if you give, God's going to bless you with X amount more. But it's more about the relationship. When I pay attention to a relationship, or if I pay attention to a part of a relationship, I tend to do better with that. It's like the old model of going to the gym. When I go to the gym and I attend to my exercise, that part of my being is usually better. And when I don't attend to it, it's not as good. It's a relationship. He was telling me about, he got serious about his giving when he was introduced to a church that was trying to do a reverse tithe. As a congregation, they had set a goal that they would give away 90% of their money and only use 10% for the church's needs. Now, if you're like me, my first thought was, how do we do that? How do we reduce all of our expenses? And then it dawned on me, he's talking about a congregation that wants to give so much that it's that much more than what they need. That's giving out of a relationship. I read about a youth pastor one time that his youth group was working in a soup kitchen. It was a cold, snowy night. There were lots of people coming in for soup. But they were also giving away winter clothing. So people were coming in, getting some soup, getting some winter clothing, coats, scarves, things of that nature. And it was almost to the end, and they were just tired and beat from having worked in this place all day, when the last gentleman coming in the door requested a coat, but they were out of coats. The youth minister made his choice that night based on relationship. And in part, the relationship with himself. He reflected later that the decision was made easy when he thought to himself which was going to be more difficult to live with. Going home and explaining to his wife, who had given him the coat, why he no longer had it, even though she had wanted to have it. That cold ride home without the coat. Or wearing the coat home and thinking about that other child of God doing without it. That's not Jesus saying that this man should suffer every day, but it was something he could do without. And so he gave it. It's not Jesus saying that the rich are somewhat different than the poor. If anything, Jesus is saying the exact opposite. It's not that the widow was so much different than the rich people in the room because of the amount of money they gave. Jesus' whole point was the motivation for giving the money to begin with, which was all about relationship. Circus act came to town. Had a strongman act. He would invite people in the room, and the game was he would squeeze an orange with his bare hands, and if you could squeeze one drop of orange juice out of that orange when he was done, he would pay you $1,000. Well, he drew a big crowd. And lots of people came up at the end of every night to try and squeeze that orange because what do you have to lose? You can win $1,000. Just embarrass yourself maybe, but who cares? Several nights in a row, nobody gets anything out of the orange until close to the last night. An older gentleman with his cane comes toddling up to the front and takes his turn at the orange. You can imagine the snickers in the room until the drops started coming out. Not just one, 6. He gets 6 more drops of orange juice out of that orange. Even the strong man was astounded. And when it was all said and done, the strong man asked the older gentleman, how in the world what was your trick? That's a circus, right? What was your trick? Well, the older man said, no trick. I'm a church treasurer. We've been doing this with budgets for years. We are blessed in this church that we don't have to do that. As Jim alluded to, we have a legacy of generosity in this church that has inspired many of us. It's one of the reasons that we're able to take care of our budgeting before we take care of our pledging. I've been in churches that did it in reverse order, which seems more reasonable, but usually ends up in a spiral of less and less ministry. As we look at our pledges and say, well, we're only going to be able to budget this much, and never setting a goal, never setting a dream, never looking at relationships as something that drives our stewardship experience. It's been a joy to have that kind of history in this church. And it's a joy in that kind of history on to our children and see them live out that kind of stewardship experience. Not every day is going to be great for us financially. That's just a reality of life. But the reality of our giving is how we can use that to attend to the relationships that are so powerful in our lives. Amen. Paul is going to pray with us and for us today.